Hi, hello English readers, and welcome to this new live read-along of Lydie's book club. I'm Lydie and I'm an English teacher in France. I'm also the founder of Lydie's book club, in which I host live readings of adaptations of classics or contemporary novels of English literature. And once a week, I meet the members of the book club via Zoom for a live workshop to discuss the chapters read over the week. In this book club, I tend to prioritize books that are written by women. And this month, we are reading the graded reader adaptation of White Teeth. Over the next 3 weeks, we have read so far. We've been reading this book for 2 weeks now, and this is the last week. So over those last 2 weeks, I've been hosting live readings sessions on Instagram that you can watch here on YouTube or listen on Spotify, on the Spotify podcast called Read in English. And in addition to these 9 live reading sessions that I'm hosting during this live reading, I also host 3 live workshops on White Teeth. I've hosted so far 2 so far, and the last session will be hosted not this Saturday, but the next one. So those live workshops are hosted on Zoom and on 3 different Saturdays at 9 a.m. And to have access to these workshops for free, you have to become a member of the book club. So make sure you subscribe and join the community. You can find all the dates and information on my website. Just click in the link in the bio. And also, I just want to remind you that you can now purchase the 3-part live workshop on Jane Eyre that I hosted last month. And you can purchase it on my website store. You can find the link as well in the description. And once you have purchased the workshop, then you will have to enter login, a password, and you will have a private access to these videos. And today we are reading chapter 11 and 12 together. So if you like to know more about Zadie Smith and her novel White Teeth, then I encourage you to listen to the podcast episode 21, an introduction to Zadie Smith and White Teeth. And it's available on YouTube as well and on Spotify. Right. So before I start the reading, as usual, I do a quick recap on the last chapters that we've read. So last Friday, we read chapters 10 and 11. And in these chapters, we talked about Clara and Alsana being quite confused and also a little bit annoyed with the situation with their children. So we are at the stage where Clara's daughter, Irie, and Alsana's son, Majid, are spending quite a lot of time at the Chalfins' home. So Mr. and Mrs. Chalfin, and more specifically Miss Chalfin, well, both of them, let's say, are helping these 2 teenagers in their studies with their son, because their son Joshua is in the same school as them, and they're helping them with their studies, but not necessarily in the right way, especially for Majid, because his grades are okay. They're getting a little bit better, but not as much as Irie. Irie is very thorough in her work. She's very serious in the way she's undertaking this opportunity for her to progress in her grades. Whereas Majid is spending, he's taking advantage of Mrs. Chaffin, Joyce, kindness, Joyce's kindness towards him, because he's just making himself at ease, let's say. He is inviting his friends, they're smoking, and Joyce is not saying anything. She lets him do whatever he wants. And also he borrows her money. And we discussed that in the book club, in the workshop, when we talked about the fact that he actually owed her. So Joyce lends him money. She gives him money, so she lends, and expect that maybe she will get it back, but she definitely won't. And that means, and in return, Majid owes her about £300. So it starts becoming quite a sum. So it's not necessarily good for him to responsibilize himself, to make it more sensible and more more studious towards his studies, or towards his work for school. So this is not necessarily going in the right direction for Majid. And towards the end of chapter 10, Clara visits, she pays a visit to Joyce, and there they have a conversation. They start chatting, and Joyce is asking quite an unexpected question, or very inappropriate questions, or a very clumsy way to put it. But this one is not that, although she asked clumsy questions, but this one is quite thoughtful. Not thoughtful, but it is genuine. It's a genuine question, and she's actually asking whether Irie's intelligence come from, and whether it was Jamaican or English, expecting, it was kind of a rhetorical question, because it made sense to her that it was, of course, from the English side. And unexpectedly, Clara answered her side, of course. Although in her side, there is the presence of an Englishman who, so basically her grandfather was an Englishman. Not her grandfather, yes, her grandfather, sorry. So because her grandmother got pregnant, well, she had relations with this English captain, who who arrived with the army to maintain the presence in English presence in Jamaica, and they had together a child, and this child is Autumn's Bowden, so Clara's mother. So Ortensboden is mixed race. So Clara is acknowledging to Mrs. Bowden, Mrs. Chaffin, that although it comes from her side, there is a white side, a white part of her side in the family. So, and that will explain the fact that Irie is intelligent. So, and Clara gets quite angry at herself when she mentions Captain Durham, so the white, the Englishman that had a relationship with her mother. So, well, her grandfather. And she really blamed herself for mentioning this man and not acknowledging that actually Ari's intelligence could just come from her as herself alone, and not because she had a white Englishman from the family. So there is here in a complex of inferiority in relation to race and intelligence. Yeah. And in order to be validated by society, or here indeed by this white educated woman. Then in chapter 11, we stopped there, actually. Sorry, that was the recap of chapter 10. And no, it was 9 and 10. Sorry, I did the recap of chapter 10. But in chapter 9, we actually learned that Millet, oh, sorry. Sorry, it's not Majid. Sorry, I got confused with the name. It's Milad. Majid is the twin brother that was sent to Bangladesh, sent back home. Milad, sorry. We learn in chapter 9 that Milad, Joyce, and Irie, sorry, I'm a little bit tired today. The busy morning. So that Milad and and Clara, no, Milad and Irie. Oh my God. I'm gonna get there. Milad and Irie are being welcomed to the Chaffins' home, and here we have a passage where Joyce is asking where Irie is from, and Irie is saying that, oh, I'm from Wilson, the area there where they live, and Joyce, so the Mrs. Chaffin, asks, no, but where are you from originally? So that also asks questions about how sometimes unconscious racism is enters the conversation, and is part of the systemic racism, and she doesn't realize is that these kind of questions are inappropriate and can hurt, actually, people with brown skin, or having different backgrounds, especially when people insist in the question and don't really understand that this young girl has been born and raised in London and considers herself more like a British person, knowing that she's got Jamaican background. Again, it asks questions about identity here, and review how Irie sees herself, and Millet as well, through the eyes of white people. So that was the little recap, and now we're going to read chapter 11. Okay, so let's not get confused now. Love letters. Marcus and Majid began writing letters to each other. So Marcus is Joshua's father. So I'm a little bit disturbed here. Marcus is yes, is Joshua's father. So he's Joyce's husband. So it's quite interesting here that is getting in touch with Majid. Remember, Majid is Millet's brother, twin brother. So that's interesting here. Okay. Marcus and Majid began writing letters to each other. It was Joyce who started it by looking in Iris's address book. And after March 1991, letters began to pass back and forward regularly. Between them, they wrote thousands of words, and because Marcus made copies of all his letters, Irie had to file them for him. She made two files. The first said, from Marcus to Majid. The second said, from Majid to Marcus. Occasionally, she would quietly put a letter in her pocket and take it home. But what she read did not bring her joy. Instead, it made her jealous because it was clear that Marcus was now more interested in teaching Majid than her. Majid and Marcus. It even sounded good. So it's a little bit disturbing to see that it's an adult grown up that is talking to this young boy, this young man, Majid, at the miles away on the other side of the planet, almost back in over to Bangladesh, and they're exchanging letters. It is as if I had always known you, Majid. You think like me. I like that. We have a meeting of minds, Marcus. They wrote long paragraphs about genes and cancer and changes in medicine. They discussed their plans for the future. Marcus wanted Majid to come to England as soon as possible. He was even offering to pay so that Majid could go to university at Oxford or Cambridge and train to become a lawyer. Marcus needed Majid to fight the animal rights. To fight the animal rights people. So to fight the animal rights people, so that he could continue with his mouse experiment. Our future mouse, as he called them. But there was one letter from Marcus in particular that most hurt Irie. Things round here are the same. Expect my finds are now very well ordered. Thanks to Irie. You will like her. She's an intelligent girl and she has the most enormous breasts. But sadly, I don't think she will ever become a scientist because she doesn't understand the ideas. She could try medicine maybe, but I don't really think she is good enough for it. I think she should study dentistry. She can fix her own teeth, at least. It's a good job, but not good enough for you. Here again, the topic of teeth and dentistry, again, when he's talking about the choice of studies that Irie should do, he's very degrading here and diminishing Irie's intelligence. Irie cried for a little while after she read this, but she was like her mother and father. She turned the bad into good. Right, she thought. I'll be a dentist. Dentistry? Right. Meanwhile, Joyce was trying to help Milad with his problems with women, with white women. And there were many. All women, black ones, brown ones, white ones, wanted Milad. They gave him phone numbers, cross-crowded bars to buy him drinks and followed him home. Maybe it was his beautiful chocolate brown eyes or thick black hair. Who knew? But as the American says, you've either got it or ain't. And Milad had buckets of it. But strangely, Milad's girlfriends were usually white and middle class, age 15 or 28, and living around West Hampstead. So, very nice area in the north of London. This did not worry him at first. Most of the girls at Glenard Oak were like this, and as Milad was the only boy worth having sex with, he was going to have it with most of it. Is making the most of his popularity. Right at the moment, he was having sex with Karina Kane, and he was enjoying it so much that he was only sleeping with 3 other women. And anyway, Karina Kane was different. It was not just sex. He liked her and she liked him. And she looked after him. He looked after her, too, in his own way. Sometimes he even brought her flowers. The relationship was good and he was happier than usual. Except that Kevin, remember the initials Kevin, which is a group of Islamist conservative people based in Kilburn. He liked her and she liked him. So sometimes so the relationship was good and he was happier than usual, except that Kevin did not see it that way. So the group, Kevin. One evening, after Karina had driven Millet to a Kevin meeting, Brother Hiffen and Brother Tyrone crossed Kilburn Town Hall to talk to him. They gave him a leaflet called Who is Truly Free? The Sisters of Kevin or the Sisters of London. Millet thanked them and put the leaflet in his pocket. How was that leaflet? They asked him the next week. Was it a good read, Brother Millet? Millet had not had time to read it, but he could see that it mattered to Brother Tyrant and Brother Hefan. So he said that he had and that he enjoyed it. The next week, he made some time to read the leaflet. He felt strange afterwards. In 3 short days, Karina came, a lovely girl who made him feel happy, had pissed him off. More than in a whole year they had been having sex. Though, did not know why. Is it becoming clearer? the brothers asked him the next week. Yes, man, said Milad, with a nod and a smile. The brothers looked happy, and Milad was glad to see that they looked pleased. They both wore dark suits, and he felt like he was in a James Bond film. Anyway, got to go, Milad said. My girl's waiting for me. Brother Tyrant looked disappointed of that. Just before Milad left, he put another leaflet in his hand. You could be a great leader of men, Milad, Brother Tyrant said, looking at him, and then at Karina Kane, her small breasts showing under her t-shirt as she looked over the car door at Milad. But at the moment, you're half the man. Allah needs the whole man. As he got in the car, Milad noticed how much of her body Karina was showing. Her t-shirt looked shorter, and he could see an inch of her bare stomach. He read the next leaflet and began more aware of what she wore and the way other men looked at her. And when he spoke about it, she said, "Oh, I hate that. All these dirty old men." But it seemed to Milad that she wanted men to look at her, that she was, as the leaflet said, selling herself to a man's stare. The more he thought about it, the more it pissed him off. Why couldn't she cover up? I can't respect you, he told her finally, until you respect yourself. She said that she did respect herself, but Milad could not believe her, which was strange because he had never known Karina Kane to lie. Karina began to cry. She said she did not know what was happening to him. The problem is, thought Milad, neither do I. A few days later, he called her and finished their relationship. So he broke up with her. He continued to have sex with the other 3 girls because he did not care about them. But Karina Kane was his love. And he felt that she should cover up so that other men did not stare at her. About 6 hours after making the call, Milad had arrived at the Chalfins, very drunk and upset. He destroyed Oscar's toys and threw the coffee machine across the room. Then he did what Joyce had been waiting for these last 12 months. He asked her for advice. She told him that maybe he did not like himself, or perhaps he wanted to have with whiter babies, or did he know that he had read that 90% of Muslims did this or that? But he must not worry, she told him. She had found him a good counselor that he could go and talk to, and she would pay for it. Years later, Milad would remember a girl called Karina something or another who had liked him, and she had liked him. Oh, who he had liked, and she had liked him. It made him laugh and looked after him. And in his own way, he had looked after her too. But she seemed very distant now. And that was that. There was troubles at the Jonases. Irie was about to become the first Bowden Jones to enter university. She wanted to study dentistry, which everyone was happy about, but she also wanted to take a year off first to go to India and Africa. She wanted her parents to let her do this and to help her with money if possible. But Clara said no. She did not want her daughter to go far away to study poor Black people. On 25th of October 1991, at 1 a.m., Irie decided to go into battle. She knew that her mother was most easy to persuade when she was in bed. She always spoke slowly and strangely then, like a child. And usually she said yes to anything: money, a new bike, even a party. Irie opened the bedroom door and light came into the room from the hall. Irie, what is the middle of night? Go back to bed, said Clara in her strange night voice. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. In her strange, nice night voice. Bloody hell! It's one in the morning, love, Archie said, turning away. Some of us have got to work tomorrow. I want to talk to Mum, said Irie, walking to the end of the bed. She won't talk to me during the day, so I have to do this. Irie, please, I'm tired. I'm trying go get some sleep, said her mother. So she probably has a pillow in her mouth. I don't just want a year off, Irie said. I need one. I'm young. I want some experiences. I've lived in Wilson all my life. Everyone's the same here. I want to go and see people of the world. That's what Joshua is doing, and his parents are helping him. Well, we can't afford it, said Archie. We haven't all got jobs in science, have we? I don't care about the money. I get a job, but I want you to be happy for me. I don't want to go away and spend every day thinking you're angry with me. Mum, please, will you sit up and talk to me? I don't want you to go, replied Clara. If you want to share a black people, you can stare at me for 6 months. You get yourself killed, Elder. Sorry. Now very angry, Irie walked quickly round Clara's side of the bed. Why can't you sit up properly and drop that stupid little girl's voice? In the darkness, Irie kicked over a glass of water and then screamed as she felt something bite her toe. Ow! She looked down to where the pain was and saw a set of front teeth under her toe. What in the hell are they? But even as she said it, Irie was putting two and two together. The strange putting two and two together means that she understood, she found out what was happening. The strange midnight voice, the perfect daytime straightness and whiteness. Clara hurriedly stretched her hand to the floor and pulled her teeth from Irie's foot. Then put them on the bedside table. Happy? So she didn't have her teeth in her mouth. You know, her fake teeth. Clara said angrily. She had never chosen not to tell Irie. There just never seemed to be a good time. But Irie was 16, and to her, this did feel like a choice, another choice in the long list of her parents' lies and secrets. All that story, that history you were never told about. Archie's leg, a photo of a strange white Grandpa Durham, a mad wife called Ophelia. Ophelia, remember, used to be Archie's wife before he got married with Clara. Well, don't look so shocked, love, said Archie. It's just some bloody teeth. It's not the end of the world. But it was, in a way. She had had enough. She had had enough. She was tired of not hearing the whole truth, and she was going back to where she began. She walked back into her room, packed her schoolwork and some clothes, and put a heavy coat on over her night dress. She thought about the Chalfins for half a second, but she already knew there were no answers there, only more places to escape. Irie knew where she had to go, where the N17 bus would take her. Through 47 would take her. Through 47 bus stops. Through 47 bus stops before she reached it. My God, said Hortense Bowden, several hours later, her eyes half closed at the front door. Irie Ambrosia Jones, is that you? So here you understand that Irie runs away to her grandmother, Hortense. And you see that Irie has, as a second name, Ambrosia, which is her grandmother's name. Okay. Chapter 12, Coming Home. They had not met for 6 years since Darcus had died. Irie was taller and wider. Darcus is Hortense's husband, if you remember. Irie was taller and wider. Hortense was still round and strong, but she was 84 now. 84 is not 77 or 63. At 84, there is nothing ahead but death. It was there in Hortense's face as Irie had never seen before. The waiting and the fear and the joy of escape. Her basement flat had not changed. It was still damp and dark, with lots of tiny statues everywhere and crosses on the walls. The only thing missing was Darcus, although his empty armchair remained in the corner and his television was still on. Irie had once been a regular visitor here, when Archie would bring her around to see Hortense while her mother was at college. Then Clara had found out about the visits and stopped them. Irie and Hortense still occasionally spoke on the phone, and Irie often received short letters from her and copies of the watchtower. So Darcus has died. Her grandfather has died, and she hadn't seen much her grandmother lately. Irie, look at you, cried Hortense. You've hardly got any clothes on. You must be freezing. She pulled her into the kitchen and made her sit in Darcus's chair. Then she made her a hot drink. So, she said, handing it to her. You finally escaped from that godless woman? Well, I don't blame you. In the end, the ones without sin will always escape evil. All the Lord's children return in the end. Gran, I haven't come to find God, Irie said. I just want to do some quiet study here and get some space for my head. I need to stay a few months, at least till the new year. Yes, they all return in the end, Hortense continued saying. So you left Archibald with that woman? Poor Archibald. I always liked him. He wasn't my problem, but God never wanted the colors to be mixed up. Still, you came from it, and that's good. She put her finger under Irie's chin. You're built like me, you know. Big breasts and thighs. My mother was the same. Now, she said, stepping back and clapping her hands together. You're sleeping in the front room. But what about Mom's old room? Irie said. Can't I just sleep in there? Hortense led Irie into the living room. That's not possible, she said. There is a situation. I'll explain in the morning. The only time that Hortense's flat was not dark was between 6 and 7 in the morning in autumn. Then, just for a short time, the sun shone in through the windows and turned the sitting room yellow. It lit up the long, thin vegetable garden outside, and just for a minute, you could imagine you were somewhere else in Europe, in Spain, or Italy, perhaps. Irie thought this now as she held a large cup of tea and stared out at a handsome Italian man picking fruit. Then the sun went behind a cloud and she was back in Lambeth again, staring at a thin, red-headed man shaking a tomato with his boot. "That is Mr. Tops," said Hortense, hurrying across the kitchen in a purple dress with a hat in her hand. "He has been such a help to me since Darcus died. He looks after me and relaxes my mind." Her grandmother waved to the man, and he waved back. Irie watched him pick up 2 plastic bags filled with tomatoes and walk up the garden towards the back door. "And he's the only man who has managed to grow anything in that garden," she added. "You've never seen so many tomatoes." "Does he live here?" whispered Irie, amazed. "With you, I mean?" "Not in the way you mean," said Hortense. "He's just been a big help to me as I've got old. Now, don't be so shocked. A woman needs a man around the house. Mr. Tops and I are fighting God's battle. Some time ago, he joined the Jehovah's Witnesses, and now he's become very important to them. I've been waiting 50 years to do more of them than clean. They don't like women being involved in church's business. However, Mr. Tops does a lot and involves me sometimes too." Then she moved to the back door and opened it for the man. "Good morning, Mr. Tops," she said. "Good morning, Mrs. Bowden," replied Mr. Tops. And he put down the tomatoes. Then he took off his coat, and Irie saw a blue suit underneath it. "I hope you're ready," he said. "You have to be at the hall at 7. At that moment, Hortense put her hand on Irie's shoulder and pushed her forward. "Now, this is my granddaughter, Irie Jones, and this is Mr. Ryan Tops. Say hello, Irie, dear." Irie said hello and reached out her hand to shake Ryan's. Remember, Ryan is used to be Clara's boyfriend that she left. She broke up because they were taking different directions. Clara wanted to separate herself from the Jehovah's Witnesses community. She wanted to distance herself from the community. And on the other hand, and on the opposite, Ryan wanted to actually, well, he started getting very much involved with Hortense's, with the Jehovah's Witnesses, actually. And he started enjoying Hortense's beliefs and enjoying time with her, learning about the Jehovah's Witnesses and the religion. But so she said hello and reached out her hand to shake Ryan's. But he did not take it, and his eyes moved carefully over her. He was redder than any redhead she had ever met, and his skin was a horrible brown-blue color. She is Clara's daughter," said Hortense. Mr. Topps knew your mother a long time ago. Irie, but it's all right, Mr. Topps. She's come to live with us now. Only for a little time, Irie corrected her, seeing the look of horror on Mr. Topps' face. Clara's daughter, whispered Hortense. She might have been yours. Nothing surprised Irie about this last sentence. She just added it to the list. Ambrosia Bowden gave birth in an earthquake. Captain Charlie Durham was a no-good fool boy. False teeth in a glass. She might have been yours. Clara's daughter, is she? Said Ryan, finally, as he slowly sat down at the kitchen table. Then he took a notebook from his pocket. I don't really remember your mother. She never talked about you either, said Irie, sitting opposite him. Well, it was a long time ago, said Hortense, lightly, as she put a big Jamaican breakfast in front of them. And you tried your best with her, Mr. Topps. But Clara was always moving towards evil. In the end, nothing could be done. After breakfast, Hortense put a helmet on her head, and she and Ryan Topps left on his scooter. When she returned that evening, Hortense received an angry call from Clara. First, I have to keep her away from those bloody Chalfins, her daughter shouted. And now it's you people again. I don't want you filling her head with your rubbish. Your mother was a fool and you're a fool, but it has stopped with me. And it is not going to continue. If Irie comes home and starts talking about Jehovah, you can forget about the last day on earth because you'll already be dead. But Clara did not have to worry about Irie becoming Jehovah's Witness because she did not believe in God. She was a Chalvinist through and through. But she was becoming very interested in her grandmother's house and the strange way that Hortense and Ryan Topps lived. Everything was paid for daily, whether the milkman or the newspaper, just in case the end of the world was coming. The flat was an adventure. In cupboards, in drawers were the secrets that had been kept from Irie for years. She found pictures of her great-grandmother, Ambrosia, a tall, beautiful woman with large eyes, and one of Charlie, Whitey Durham. She found pictures of Clara in school uniform with her missing front teeth, and she read about Jamaica. The more she read about it, the more interested she became. And now, when she stared at the garden in the early morning sun, she did not see Ryan Topps speaking Italian tomatoes, but Jamaican sugar. So this was where she came from. This all belonged to her. She visited her parents at weekends, but conversation was difficult, and everyone seemed to act awkwardly. She still saw Millet regularly at school, but they did not talk much because he was spending all his time with Kevin. She still did Marcus's filling twice a week, but she avoided the rest of the family. She occasionally saw Josh, but he also seemed to be avoiding his family. Then, one day, Josh came to visit her at Hortense's when her grandmother and Ryan were out. I'm sick of it, he shouted, and I'm sick of them. Who? Irie asked. Them, my parents. They go on about choices and rights, and they eat 50 chickens every day, every week. They talk rubbish. Do you know how chickens live? Irie did not, so Joshua explained. They spend their lives in small cages in the dark, close together, and they are fed the worst kind of kitchen food. And this was nothing compared to how pigs and cows were kept. It's a crime, said Joshua. But try telling Marcus that. Oh, while I'm here, read this. He passed her a leaflet called Meat is Murder, the Facts from Fate. Fate, said Irie. It means fighting, animal, torture, and exploitation. Fate. And again, here fate is the destiny in English. Another word for destiny. They're an animal rights group. Read it. I feel like I found where I belong, and I knew you'd understand. I can't be in the house these days. When I do see you, when I do see you, Milat, when I do see you, Milat is always there. It's really good to see you alone. Anyway, I've got my ticket for Glastonbury Music Festival now, and I might not come back. I met these people in Fate called Jolie and Crispine, and I'm going with them. It's only March, said Irie. Glastonbury is in the summer. We're going to go up there early to camp a bit. I'll come back for my exams, and then I might go off traveling. Irie, you've got to meet these people. You've got to meet these people. I told Jolie about Marcus and his bloody future mouse. She thinks he might be crazy and even dangerous. Anyway, I'm giving up meat and becoming a vegetarian. You know the saying, it's time to fight fire with fire. When Hortense and Ryan came home late that evening, after a prayer meeting, they were both very excited. Tonight's the night, Ryan told Irie. Then he quickly went into the hall to make a telephone call to some important Jehovah's Witness people in America. What a day is this? What a day, cried Hortense. While Ryan was out of the room, Irie decided to ask a question she had always wanted to ask her grandmother, but she worded it very carefully. Hortense sat back in her chair and thought for a while. Then she said, I've been doing this a very long time, Irie, since I was a girl. But that's no reason. What do you know about reasons? Asked Hortense quickly. I belong to the Witness Church. It was good to me when no one else was. Let me tell you something. I'm not one of those witnesses who is just scared of dying. I have different ideas. I want to achieve something, even if I am a woman. I want to be there with God, making the decisions. I'm tired of the church always telling me that I am a woman or I'm not educated enough. Everybody is always trying to educate you about this and about that. There's always been the problem with the women in the family. When I'm one of the 144,000 who are saved, no one will educate me. That will be my job. I'll be making my own laws and not wanting anyone else's. My mother was strong, and I'm the same. Your mother was the same, and you're the same. At that moment, Ryan came back into the room with a proud smile on his face, which had turned redder than ever. What? Mr. Tops? Cried Hortense. When is it? Do you know? God help the non-believers, Mrs. B, he shouted. For 1st January 2000 is the day. The world will end then. Now we need to write it in the watchtower. Oh, yes, Mr. Tops. I knew that was the day. Oh, Irie, I'm so glad you're here to share this. I've lived through the whole century. Now I've only got 7 years to wait. And I'm going to go to Jamaica to see it. And you can come there too. If you learn from me and listen. Do you want to come to Jamaica with me for the start of the year 2000? This, Irie let out a little scream and threw her arms around her grandmother. And that's the end of chapter 12. So we see here that Irie is going back to her roots, going back to her mother, and try to understand where she's from, and learning more about her identity and her background. So it's interesting to see that for young people and people in general, it's often important for them, for us as human beings, to identify yourself, to being able to know where you're from, and see where, so that you're able to see where you're going, or you have a better understanding of yourself. And she's doing this work. Irie is doing the work of finding herself, defining herself, her own identity, so that she is able to define herself, her identity, and not society defining her. So I hope this chapter will give you lots of inspiration and thoughtful ideas to share. So I'd love to have you in a workshop to exchange and dig deeper in this question of identity. I hope you enjoyed the live reading, and make sure that you subscribe to the book club membership to have access to the live workshop of White Tea for free. And remember that you can also purchase the workshop, the live workshop on JNA that I hosted last month. I wish you a beautiful end of the day, and I will see you on Thursday. So I will see you tomorrow for chapter 12. Bye-bye.